Okay. What changes demand? First of all, we need to understand the concept of what demand represents. So let's just really quick kind of just go through and label some prices and quantities for Coca-Cola, okay? So we've got Coca-Cola 2-liter bottles, and I'm just going to put some prices and some quantities up here. $1.49, $6.50, $3 even, 23 cents. Okay, so these are all dollars. And if we say that $1.49 is close to a good price, a normal price, I really don't know. When I need to think of Coke, I just pick it up. And as you may find out later, if you study more economics, there's a price for leisure as well, and you get to be a very busy professional, and you pay that price by not paying attention to the price of something. Like, I need to get some Coke, right? And instead of searching carefully for the best price, you pay a price by not paying attention. And that's related to the cost of time for a busy person. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just come up with some numbers. Let's say that you and your roommates would buy 5 bottles of Coke at this price. Now in a classroom, I'd be asking you questions. I'd be saying, if the price goes up, what would happen to your quantity? Because we need to get used to the idea that when there's a higher price, people will tend to buy less. These are laws of demand. There's a law of supply, there's a law of demand. Okay? So we have $3. If I was asking the class, of course they'd say, oh, $3, well, maybe we buy, they'd say something less, and you'd agree, right? 2. Or they'd even say 1. Shall we go with 1? We'll go with 2. Okay, what if the price goes lower? You show up at Walmart or Dollar General and it's 23 cents. Yeah, the number that you purchase will be higher. How high? I don't know. You may just back up the pickup truck to the door of Walmart for all I know, right? Throw it all in. So this is going to be a larger number. I mean, I can say 25 because you could always sell them to your friends in the dorms or something. You got there first, you got the sale, right? So, but am I correct that this would be the way you would behave at different prices? Most of you would say 0, but then again, it may be your birthday and somebody's going to get you a bottle of Coke at $6.50. You never know. Maybe at $65 would definitely be 0. Okay? So what did we learn? There is a law of demand. What did we learn? We learned that as prices go higher, quantities go down. So while one's going up, the other one's going down, or while one's going down, the other one's going up, right? So what sort of a mathematical relationship is this? If you were in a high school math class, what would we say? An inverse relationship. They're negatively related. And if you were to graph them, do you remember graphing? Where you took your x and your y variables and you graphed them. You would have x, you would have y. And whatever those things were, they would graph, right, somewhere. Well, first of all, before I graph price and quantity, I'm going to tell you price is going to graph over here, and quantity is going to graph over here. But here's the weird thing. In economics, very often, most of the time, we will be graphing our independent variable on the y-axis, the vertical axis. Why? We understand the math, and we understand that this should be the x-axis, this should be the y-axis, and x is your independent variable, just like in high school. Y is the dependent variable, just like in high school, except for the fact that in the history of economics, there was a big, big argument between the person who wrote the first textbook that had graphs, graphing price and quantity, and the person who didn't write the textbook. And they were arguing about which one came first. Which one was independent, which one was dependent. Does the quantity of something change the price, or does the price change the quantity? And they had this big argument, and it was finally settled that price is independent and quantity is dependent. However, the textbooks had been printed, and all of our great grand professors of economics learned to draw and graph the inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. The D there. They had already learned to graph with P on the vertical axis, even though it's independent. So that's a little bit, took a little trip. I call that chasing a bunny, but that's one of those little things about economics that you should know, because if you're into math, you're going to go, wait, what? Aren't you doing this backwards? And we're going to go, yeah. So that's the way we're going to do it. So because it's been done this way for more than 100 years, we're not going to change it. So we put price over here, quantity over here, and we look at when we look at the price first, then we determine what quantity will be the reaction to that. Got it? Now, the law of demand. I have really, really horrible handwriting due to a medical condition, so we all have to live with it. Law of demand. I don't know how far over this camera is going to go, so I'll write it all in a bunch. Real close here. There is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay? Now we have to say quantity demanded, because when we talk about supply, we're going to find out there's a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. So quantity demanded, they go together here in the law of demand. Got it? Okay, I want to warn you, since this is one of the first videos of the term, I'm doing good just a video. I have purchased a video editor package and haven't learned much yet. So what's going to happen is, at some point, my camera is just going to say, oh, that video's over, and it will just start another video. So we will have what changes demand part 1 and 2 or 3. So it'll be like 2 or 3 videos, but it's all one. So don't just say, oh, I watched the first one, that's good enough, okay? Because it's just going to randomly cut me off and start a new one. All right, so the thing about demand is, besides the law of demand, there is something out there that is demand for something. And just temporarily, I'm going to call this the demand. I'm going to say, let me redraw this. Let's pretend we're talking about a really expensive car, okay? So, I don't know much about expensive cars myself, but how many of us represent demand for some $100,000 really nice sports car? Wish I had a name for one. But anyway, let's just imagine your dream car, some wonderful $100,000 car. And if I say, do you represent demand for that car? You're thinking, a lot of people in the class, when I ask this question in a classroom, very few people raise their hands. Because we all think, well, I can't afford that car. But demand represents all the price and quantity possible combinations, even the unrealistic ones at the moment. So if you would buy that car, if it was $10 and it was still the fancy sports car and perfect and new and everything, if you would buy it if it was $10, then you're a part of the demand. Because what's going to happen is, as the price falls from, say, 100,000 down to 10, the amount of people, the quantity goes from 0 to huge, right? So you would be a part of the demand way out here amongst the millions and millions and millions of people who would buy that car at $10. You might even be willing to buy it for $500. But you're part of the demand for it. You get that? So demand represents all the possible ones, the ones in between, 0.24, 0.24001, all the way up to, $650,000 for a 2-liter thing of Coke we were talking about. So all the possible combinations, which I still say that's going to be 0, but you got the idea? So demand is something that isn't going to change when you change the price, because the price is a part of the equation. And in fact, when we get to intermediate micro, we'll stop graphing and we'll start just using math. And so we'll start out with simple equations, but basically the price and the quantity will be part of an equation. So when you change the price, the quantity changes. But the equation itself is the demand, represents the demand. So changing price will do nothing except move you to a different quantity. And doing it on a graph, if we're here, this is the quantity, right? Quantity that goes with 100,000 for the fancy car. And what we've got 100,000, and there's some quantity, it may be 24 people in the world. And we change the price to 10, and that changes to 6 billion people. Way out here somewhere, okay? Quantity equals 6 billion. So all we do is we change the price, and you move from one quantity intersection of price and quantity to another quantity. But this line, this function that represents an equation, that didn't change. Demand doesn't change when you change the price. And I'll get you guys on that on a test. even though you're looking at me and I'm looking at you, and you're gonna say, no, you won't. I'll have some question like, the price of pizza went up. What happened to the demand for pizza? Nothing. Because price of the thing you're looking at, like if you're talking about pizza, price will not change the demand. Today's price. Tomorrow's price might. Okay. Now, what does change demand? And since I'm talking about demand, put a capital there. What changes demand? First thing you need to know, not price, but you need to know what it looks like. Quantity goes on this axis. What goes on this axis? Price. Okay. So this, let's say this is our original demand curve. And there are two possible things that could happen here, besides staying where it is. Okay. But what I'm looking at is it could move this way or it could move this way. So let's just call this one demand 1, this one demand 2, and we'll just, the middle one's demand 0. Okay. There are things that can cause demand to go up. Something becomes a fad. Everybody wants one, right? I'm going to list all these things. But then, at all prices, the quantities go up. So before we had a list of prices and we had our quantities, let me just put some up here again. What was it? Soda,